Salt can sell for pennies a pound, or close to $100 for one small jar. Same white crystal, totally different worlds. Here's every salt explained. Most people start with table salt. This is the salt in kitchens around the world. It's mined or pulled from the sea, then refined down to almost pure sodium chloride. Here's something most people don't know. In the 1920s, companies started adding iodine to salt, and Morton helped make it standard across the US. That one small change dramatically cut down a health problem that used to be common. They also add stuff to stop it clumping in humid weather. The crystals are small and even on purpose, built to dissolve fast and hit you with a quick, clean saltiness. No frills, no story, just salt doing its job. It's cheap, it's everywhere, and it quietly fixed a national health issue nobody thinks about anymore. Step up one shelf though, and the crystals get bigger, and the rules get a lot less forgiving. That's kosher salt. Kosher salt gets its name from Jewish koshering, where meat gets salted to draw out blood, and its big flaky crystals are exactly why that works. Those flakes have way more surface area, so they grab moisture, fast. That's also why chefs love pinching it straight from the box. But here's the part that trips people up. Kosher salt isn't standardized. A tablespoon of one popular brand and a tablespoon of another can hold very different amounts of salt. Same spoon, different result. Follow a recipe written for the wrong brand, and your dish can go from bland to way too salty, with zero changes on your end. Kosher salt is still made in a factory though. The next one comes from the ocean, barely touched at all. That's sea salt. Sea salt is just seawater, dried out by sun and wind until only crystals are left. Nothing major gets stripped out, so it holds onto tiny traces of other minerals, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. That's why some sea salt looks a little gray instead of bright white, and why it can taste noticeably different from table salt, depending on where it's from. France makes some of the most famous sea salt on Earth, and the most prized part of it is never scooped up. It's skimmed off the very top of the water, by hand, one thin layer at a time. We'll get to that one in a minute. Nutritionally, sea salt and table salt are basically twins. The extra minerals are too small to matter for your body. But the flavor and crunch differences are real, and chefs build entire dishes around them. Speaking of digging things up, once people figured out the ocean could turn into salt, it didn't take long to realize you could mine salt straight out of solid rock. That's rock salt. Rock salt comes from underground deposits left behind by ancient oceans that dried up hundreds of millions of years ago. And in some places, those deposits are massive. Detroit is sitting on top of one right now. There's a sprawling network of salt tunnels running underneath the entire city, left behind when an ancient sea evaporated hundreds of millions of years ago. In its raw form, rock salt is full of dirt and clay, which is exactly why it's the stuff that melts ice on your road, not something you'd put on dinner. But once it's cleaned up, refined rock salt becomes a major source for the table and kosher salt on store shelves. So here's the twist. The cheapest salt you'll ever buy, and some of the most expensive salt on this entire list, started out as the exact same thing, rock, buried for hundreds of millions of years. And speaking of expensive rock, the most famous one on the planet is also one of the most misunderstood. Everyone's already got Himalayan pink salt. This is the pink salt in lamps, grilling blocks, and grocery store grinders everywhere, and most of it comes from one mine, the Kura salt mine in Pakistan. First myth to bust, it's not from the Himalayas at all. It comes from a separate set of hills called the Salt Range, well south of the real mountains. The pink color comes from tiny bits of iron, basically rust, trapped inside the crystal. Kura is one of the largest salt mines on Earth. It gets 250,000 visitors a year, and somewhere deep inside it, there's an entire mosque built out of glowing salt bricks. Second myth to bust, the health hype. This salt is 96 to 99% regular salt. Those extra minerals everyone talks about are way too small to do anything for your body. It just tastes clean and mild. That's the salt almost everyone already has. But everything you've heard so far is still just salt. What's coming up next can cost a fortune, smells like a rotten egg on purpose, and one of them is actually naturally blue. First, the salt French chefs treat like tiny jewels. Up next is fleur de sel. Fleur de sel means flour of salt. It's the thin, fragile crust that forms on top of seawater as it dries in the marshes of Gironde, France. And it's the one we just teased a minute ago. People treat it like jewelry today, but for hundreds of years, nobody wanted it. Workers used to scrape this layer off and just throw it away, because it got in the way of the real salt forming underneath. It only shows up on dry sunny days with a steady east wind, and someone has to lift it off by hand with a flat wooden tool. Each pond gives up only a tiny amount per day, which is exactly why it costs so much. It's soft, a little wet, and gently salty, never sharp. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder wrote about salt from this exact spot almost 2,000 years ago, and French chefs brought it back into fashion in the 1900s. Sprinkle it over warm caramel, dark chocolate, or a steak right before serving, and you'll get it instantly. But the salt sitting right underneath it has a completely different story. Right under it sits sel grise. Sel grise, or Celtic gray salt, comes from those same French marshes, except this is the coarse, damp gray stuff that sinks to the bottom. That gray color isn't dirt, it's mineral-rich clay, and that clay is exactly where this salt picks up its deep, sea-like flavor. People have harvested it by hand here for over 2,000 years, since Celtic times, and they still do it the same way today. Sel grise never fully dries out. It stays naturally damp and clumpy in your fingers. Because it's bolder than fleur de sel, this is a real cooking salt, perfect for pasta water, brining meat, and roasting vegetables. It's the workhorse of a French kitchen. Cross the channel into England, though, and salt stops being about taste and starts being about sound. Across the channel, that's Maldon. Maldon sea salt comes from a small town in Essex, England, where seawater gets filtered and boiled until it forms soft, hollow, pyramid-shaped flakes. Those flakes are the whole point. They crumble between your fingers and shatter on your tongue instead of just melting away. One family, the Osbornes, has run this company since 1882, 4 generations and counting. But salt's been made on this exact spot for way longer than that. An old survey from 1086 recorded dozens of salt operations here, some tied to the English king himself. People think the Romans were boiling seawater on this spot 2,000 years ago. The taste is clean and bright, with none of the bitter edge other salts have, which is why chefs everywhere reach for it. It even holds a royal warrant, meaning it's officially supplied to the British royal household. Try it on roast meat, fresh bread, or warm cookies. And just across the water, another island protects its salt with actual law. Wales guards its own Halen Mon. Halen Mon means Anglesey salt in Welsh, made from seawater pulled from the strait between the island of Anglesey and mainland Wales. It started as a kitchen experiment. Back in 1997, a married couple boiled some seawater on their stove just to see what would happen, and that tiny experiment turned into a world-famous company. They already ran a local sea zoo, and the famously fussy seahorses there kept breeding happily, which told them the water was clean. The seawater gets naturally filtered before anyone even touches it, and the crystals get rinsed to soften the taste, leaving something almost sweet. In 2014, this became the first British salt to get the same legal protection as champagne and Parma ham. They even pay rent to the king for the right to pump that water, because the crown technically owns the coastline. Not every salt on this list is this clean, though. The next one smells exactly like a hard-boiled egg, Kala Namak. Kala Namak is Indian black salt, and the second you open the jar, you'll swear someone just cracked an egg next to you. That smell is sulfur, the same stuff behind real eggs and hot springs. Here's the part most people skip. A lot of this salt isn't dug out of the ground at all. It's built. Makers seal salt in a container with charcoal and other ingredients and heat it for hours, and that's the exact reaction that creates the eggy smell. In big chunks, it's actually dark purple-brown, not black, and it turns pink once you grind it. It's everywhere in Indian street food, and vegan cooks love it for one specific reason. It makes plain tofu taste like scrambled eggs. Smell wins over color here. Hawaii flips that completely and goes all in on color with 2 total opposites. Hawaii goes blood red with Alea salt and jet black with Haiwa Kai. Alea salt is Hawaiian sea salt mixed with red volcanic clay, which stains it a deep brick red. That clay is loaded with iron oxide, basically rust, and gives the salt a soft, earthy edge. This was never just food either. In traditional Hawaiian practice, red salt carried real cultural weight, used in cleansing and ceremony. In the 1800s, it was even shipped to the Pacific Northwest to cure salmon. You'll still find it in classic Hawaiian dishes like kalua pig and poke. Its island twin goes the total opposite direction. Hiwa Kai is black Hawaiian sea salt, and even though people call it black lava salt, there's zero lava involved. It's just sea salt mixed with charcoal, usually from burnt coconut shells, which gives it that glossy black color and a hard crunch. The charcoal barely changes the taste. It's mostly just clean salt with a faint smoky hint. This one's almost always a finishing salt because the whole point is the look. Black crystals on white fish or a seared scallop look unreal. And here's a fun twist. The exact same charcoal trick shows up again on the other side of the planet in Cyprus, where they make their own jet black flake salt for the same reason. Pure visual drama built to finish a plate. But up next is something actually naturally blue. The rarest color belongs to Persian blue salt. Persian blue salt comes from ancient rock salt deposits in Iran, and it might be the rarest salt money can buy. The crystals have real streaks of natural blue, and no, it's not dyed. The color comes from a mineral called sylvite trapped inside the salt, and the crystal structure bends light into a strange glowing blue. These deposits formed around 100 million years ago when ancient seas dried up, so you're basically eating salt older than almost anything you could name. The taste hits bold and salty up front, then fades into something slightly tangy, almost lemony, with a crunch that's nearly glassy. Producers cap the harvest at around 2 tons a year worldwide, which is why most people will never even see it in person. But here's something that might surprise you. The most expensive salt on this entire list isn't rare because of where it's from. It's expensive because of what they do to it. Korea makes one of the world's costliest salts, bamboo salt. Bamboo salt, or jukyeom, is roasted inside actual bamboo, and in its purest form, a small jar can run close to $100. The process is brutal. Sea salt gets packed into bamboo stalks, sealed shut with clay, and roasted over a fire. Then they do it again, and again, 9 times total. That final roast is hot enough to fuse the salt into a hard, dense chunk. The modern 9-roast method is a later twist on older Korean traditions, which use simpler versions for centuries. Each roast burns off impurities and pulls minerals out of the bamboo and clay. It tastes a little like sulfur, with a sweet, smoky depth underneath. For a long time, people treated it more like medicine than seasoning. Some even put it in toothpaste. This next one is so old, the world actually forgot about it for 1,000 years. Japan's oldest salt is Amabito no Moshio. The name evokes Japan's ancient sea traditions, and its story really was buried in the dirt. Japan has almost no rock salt and no salt lakes, and it's too humid to just dry seawater in the sun. So ancient people got creative. They boiled seawater together with seaweed. That method died out over 1,000 years ago until a 1984 dig near Hiroshima turned up broken pottery from the 5th century, showing exactly how it used to be done. Locals brought it straight back. Today, they soak a specific seaweed in seawater, then slowly cook it down until crystals form. The seaweed adds minerals and a deep umami flavor, that rich, savory, almost meaty taste. It's a finishing salt that makes plain rice, tempura, and even dark chocolate taste deeper. One more salt from Japan takes that kind of patience to a whole new level. Out in Okinawa, there's eguni salt. This one comes from a tiny remote island in Okinawa, and a single batch can take up to a month to finish. The method honestly sounds made up. Seawater gets pumped to the top of a tall tower, then trickles down thousands of hanging bamboo branches while sea wind slowly dries it out. After about a week, that water is 6 times saltier than the ocean. Then it's simmered over a wood fire for days. Because this island has almost no industry, the seawater around it is unusually clean, and about 15% of the finished salt is minerals other than plain salt, a mix one research institute calls among the best in the world. The taste comes out complex, sweet and savory at the same time. This entire craft nearly disappeared when Japan pushed everything toward factory salt, until one man brought it back from the edge. From one of the cleanest islands on Earth, we're jumping to a salt that started out as an environmental disaster. Australia's pink gem is Murray River salt. This soft pink salt comes from southeastern Australia, and the story behind it is genuinely clever. Salty groundwater was slowly poisoning farmland and threatening a major river. So instead of letting that happen, a company started pumping the salty water up from underground and turning it into gourmet salt, keeping up to 200 tons of salt out of the river every single day. A pollution problem became a product. That soft pink color comes straight from minerals in the ancient water. The flakes are super soft and fragile, melting fast with a gentle, almost sweet taste. It's a finishing salt that looks beautiful, scattered over pale dishes. South America hides its own pink salt with a much, much older address. Up in the Andes, you'll find Bolivian rose. This rock salt is dug high in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia, right at the edge of one of the largest salt flats on Earth. This salt is basically a fossil, an ancient ocean that got trapped, then pushed thousands of feet into the sky as the mountains rose around it. The soft pink color comes from iron, and it's often described as packing more trace minerals than regular sea salt. The flavor is mild and a little sweet, gentle on meat and vegetables. It usually comes as chunky rocks for a grinder, so you crack it fresh right onto your plate. And here's a number that might break your brain: that Salt Flat holds roughly 10 billion tons of salt. Only about 25,000 tons get mined each year. At that rate, it would take longer than human civilization has existed to even put a dent in it. This one's rare because it's beautiful, not because it's running out. Now, we're going all the way back to fire, smoke, and the Vikings. In the fire, Danish Viking smoked sea salt is made. This is sea salt smoked using a method inspired by older northern smoking traditions. And one Danish producer gets the credit for bringing it back into the spotlight. The method is anything but gentle. Seawater dries into salt in an open pan, sitting directly over a smoky fire fed with juniper, cherry, and oak. The smoke soaks straight into the salt as it forms. One food magazine described the result as simply tasting like a bonfire. And people often say it smells like bacon. It carries a deep, sweet smokiness, and just a few grains go a long way. Smoking and salting were survival tools across the North for centuries, so this salt is basically a direct taste of that history. Try it on steak, salmon, roasted vegetables, or even a single pinch in a Bloody Mary. If you enjoyed this salt breakdown, maybe you'll also enjoy the video on screen about every cooking oil explained.